I spent hundreds on gifts for my nieces and nephews, but their mom told me I was embarrassing for not spending more. So I made the decision to ruin their lives forever. They're now begging me to stop. Ever since I was little, my parents beat it into me that when I grew up I needed to provide for them. And so, my dream of making more money was always accompanied by the thought of me showering my family with gifts and love. I studied hard in school. I paid over 50% of rent as a teenager, yet I never got as much as a genuine thank you from my parents. Deep down, I think I knew something was wrong, but I craved their approval so bad, I just pushed it to the back of my mind. Fast forward to now. I'm 28, and when last Thanksgiving came around, I was actually feeling really good. For the first time in a few years, I was able to purchase gifts for everyone. My parents, my sister Emma, her husband Joe, and their 3 kids. I even got extra of everything so the kids wouldn't fight over who gets what, plus some more in case anyone brought unexpected plus ones. I convinced myself that this was how everything needed to feel. But then came the bomb drop. I showed up at my parents' house with presents loaded in my car, and when I knocked, my mom answered the door. I expected some sort of hug, or even just a simple, hello, would have been nice. But instead, she hit me with, we think it's better if you don't join us this year. I swear I thought she was pranking me, and I even started to chuckle. But then Emma hollered from the living room, this isn't a gathering for cheapskates. You've become a real drag lately. I just stood there dumbfounded. My dad was hovering in the background, not saying a word. Mom looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. And Emma? She looked downright pleased with herself. I just stared at her blankly, while my body went through the full range of emotion. Confusion, rage, humiliation, everything. But I just nodded slowly and said, all right, if that's how everyone feels, before turning around and going to sit in my car alone, surrounded by a pile of unwanted gifts. They called me a cheapskate? A drag? Where was this coming from? An awful gut feeling washed over me, and I had this nagging feeling that somehow Emma was behind all this, except I couldn't figure out why. So I did what I always do in these types of situations, and asked myself if I was my own brother-in-law, what I am to Emma. Would I appreciate myself? My head instantly flooded with memories of helping with their kids' extracurricular fees, chipping in for their vacation fund when money got tight, and even covering part of their down payment when they bought their house. This left me with a clear answer. Hell yeah, I would appreciate myself. It was at this moment that I allowed myself to get angry. Like, really angry. Enough to decide this wasn't ending here, and enough to march back up to their front door. They were still there, my parents whispering to each other like they were surprised I hadn't just driven away, and Emma sprawled on the sofa, scrolling through TikTok with the volume on full blast. I walked straight in. What's going on here? Why am I suddenly unwelcome? Emma smirked without even looking up from her phone. You think we haven't noticed that you've been slacking lately? Even the kids know they've barely gotten anything from you in months. Honestly, I would have rathered that she slapped me in the face rather than spew that bullcrap, and I couldn't help but raise my voice. Are you kidding me? I have hundreds of dollars worth of presents for your kids sitting in my car, right? But she interrupted. I don't want to hear it. A few years ago when they were born, you did way more. It's honestly embarrassing. I turned to my parents, expecting some kind of intervention or support. Instead, Mom gave me this awkward half smile and said, she's got a point, honey. You just leased that new truck. You found money for that. For a moment, I was speechless. The truck is financed, I replied, forcing myself to calm down. And even if I paid cash, how does that suddenly make me responsible for Emma's family? They're not even my child. You make twice what Joe does, Emma interrupted again, while lounging back like we were discussing the weather. We're family. Family helps each other. I glanced at Joe, who was sitting silently in the corner. So let me get this straight, I said. Because I've been generous in the past, I'm now obligated to keep giving forever? And if I don't, I'm a cheapskate? Emma shrugged. If that's how you want to see it, well, that was my breaking point. I took a step back and shook my head. You know what? You're right. I don't belong here. I looked at my parents. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. I walked out without waiting for a response. The drive home was tense, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I almost wanted to believe I was the villain here. Like, there was no way I'm just suddenly not welcome at Thanksgiving anymore. All because I haven't given enough? When I got home, I sat in my driveway for a long time, just staring at the gifts that I spent hours wrapping. Because those bags of gifts made me feel sick now. The more I thought about it, the clearer everything became. It had been building for years. Thanksgiving was just the breaking point. Emma had always leaned on me financially. When she and Joe first got married, they struggled with money. Joe bounced between jobs, and Emma's part-time work barely covered basics. I stepped in to help, thinking it would be temporary. A few hundred here, 1,000 there. But temporary turned into years. But I guess in a way, it really was all my fault. I made it too easy for Emma to depend on me, and somewhere along the way, I made a monster. And tonight was my wake-up call. I knew I had a decision to make. After some careful thinking, I realized there was only one solution. No more rescuing Emma and Joe. No more endless gifts to compensate for their financial irresponsibility. I was done. If they wanted their kids to have the things I'd been providing, they could figure it out themselves. It wasn't easy. Cutting off my sister meant potentially damaging my relationship with her, her children, and possibly my parents. But I couldn't continue being treated like an ATM instead of a brother and uncle. I didn't reach out to anyone, and no one contacted me either. I thought maybe they got the message, but I should have known Emma wouldn't wouldn't let it go that easily. The silence stretched through Christmas and New Year's. No calls, no texts, nothing. For the first time in forever, I spent the holidays completely alone. It wasn't that I expected them to reach out, but it felt strange when the ball dropped at midnight and my phone remained silent. I won't lie, I thought about calling several times, but whenever I picked up my phone, I remembered Emma's smug face and her words, gathering for cheapskates. I'd been their safety net for years, and they had the nerve to treat me like I was disposable? No thanks. By mid-January, things started shifting. Joe had always been the quiet type who avoided confrontation, but one evening, I got a text from him out of nowhere. Just wanted to say I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. I don't agree with what happened. Emma won't listen to me, but I thought you should know. I stared at my phone for a long time, unsure how to respond. Part of me appreciated knowing someone in the family recognized the injustice, but Joe had sat there silently that night, and his apology now felt insufficient. I finally replied, "Thanks for saying that, Joe, but this isn't something I can just brush off." He didn't push it further, which was fine by me. Then, in early February, Emma showed up at my apartment unannounced. I was in the middle of a video call when I heard aggressive knocking. I tried ignoring it at first, but it just kept going. When I finally answered, there stood Emma, looking frazzled and irritated. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me before I could object. I crossed my arms. "What's this about?" She didn't waste time. "You need to stop this childish behavior and start helping out again." I laughed in disbelief. "Helping out? You mean financing your life? I told you I'm done with that." She glared at me. "You're the one with money to spare. Do you know how hard it's been for us since you decided to throw this tantrum? The kids barely have what they need. Joe's struggling to keep everything together, but we can't manage without your help." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you listening to yourself? You're a grown woman, Emma. You have a husband and children. If you need more money, find better jobs. It's not my responsibility to solve your problems. You've always helped before," she snapped. "Why are you being so stingy now?" "Stingy?" I echoed. "You want to talk about stingy? Let's talk about how you lied to our parents about me, turned them against me, and then banned me from Thanksgiving because I supposedly wasn't generous enough with your kids. And now you're here asking for more? That takes some serious nerve." She started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "We're done here. I'm not giving you another penny, and I don't want to hear from you again until you learn how to act like an adult." She stood fuming for a moment before finally storming out. After Emma left, I thought that would be the end of it for a while. She'd sulk, maybe complain to our parents, but eventually realize I wasn't backing down. I was wrong. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I don't usually answer those, but something told me I should. "Hello? Is this Alex?" a woman asked. "Yes. Who's calling?" "This is Patricia Wilson. I'm an attorney. I represent a client who's raised concerns about certain financial matters involving your family. Do you have a moment to discuss this?" I froze. "An attorney? What financial matters?" "I can't go into specifics over the phone," she continued professionally, "but it involves financial contributions you've made to your sister Emma and her family, particularly the use of those contributions. Would you be willing to meet at my office?" My mind raced with possibilities. Had Emma taken out loans in my name? Was she using my information for something illegal? Or was this just another desperate attempt to guilt me into giving her money again? "Who's your client?" I asked cautiously. There was a brief pause. "I'm afraid I can't disclose that right now, but I assure you, you're not being sued. This is more of an informational meeting." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet. Curiosity got the better of me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more happening than just Emma being entitled. When I walked into Patricia Wilson's office the next day, she dropped a bombshell almost immediately. "My client is Joe," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. I blinked in surprise. "Joe? Why would he need a lawyer?" Patricia watched me carefully. "He believes Emma has been misusing the money you've given them over the years. He has evidence suggesting she's been hiding funds from both of you." My stomach dropped. "Hiding money? What do you mean?" She opened the folder, revealing bank statements, receipts, and screenshots of text messages. "Joe suspects Emma has been diverting your financial contributions into a separate account. Based on these records, she appears to be using the money for online shopping sprees and secret spa weekends, rather than family expenses." I stared at the documents in shock. "You're telling me all those times I helped with bills and the kids' needs, that money never went to them?" Patricia nodded grimly. "That seems to be the case. Joe discovered this recently, and came to me because he wasn't sure what to do. He was hesitant to involve you initially, but given recent events, he felt you deserved to know." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Emma had been playing me all along, taking money I thought was helping her family and blowing it on herself. I felt angry, betrayed, and completely stupid for not seeing it sooner. "Does Joe have solid proof?" I asked tensely. Patricia nodded and pushed the folder closer. "See for yourself." I flipped through the documents, finding transfers from my account to their joint account that matched times I'd helped with emergencies. Then there were withdrawals to a separate account in Emma's name alone. Transactions from that account showed expensive online shopping, spa retreats, and even a weekend getaway with someone named Jen that Joe apparently knew nothing about. "Unbelievable," I muttered, shaking my head. "And Joe just found out?" "He only discovered the separate account recently," Patricia explained. "He had suspicions for some time, but didn't have access to her private banking information until he accidentally opened mail addressed to her. That's when he contacted me." I sat back, trying to process everything. "Does he want me to do something? Press charges?" Patricia shook her head. "Not at this stage. He's more concerned about protecting himself and the children, but he wanted you to know in case Emma tries to manipulate you further." I laughed bitterly. "Well, she already tried. She showed up at my place demanding I start helping again." Patricia nodded knowingly. "That aligns with what Joe told told me. It seems Emma is feeling the pressure now that your financial support has stopped. She may be in deeper trouble than Joe realizes. I stared at the folder, my thoughts racing. Part of me wanted to confront Emma immediately, but another part knew that would only satisfy her need for attention. Instead, I asked, "What's Joe planning to do?" Patricia hesitated before answering. "He's weighing his options. He wants to ensure he and the children are protected, both financially and otherwise. If Emma's behavior escalates, he may file for separation." That hit me harder than expected. Joe had always seemed like the quiet, loyal type who'd stick with Emma through anything. If even he was considering walking away, things must be worse than I imagined. I called Joe that night. Our conversation was awkward at first, but it quickly turned into something deeper. "I should have said something that day at your parents'," he admitted. "I've never been good at standing up to Emma, but that's no excuse." "Why now?" I asked. "Why come forward about the money after all this time?" There was a long pause before he answered. "The kids deserve better than this. I deserve better. And honestly, so do you after everything you've done for us. Whatever you decide to do next, you have my support," I told him. "Thank you," he replied quietly. "And I'm truly sorry about Thanksgiving. You didn't deserve any of that." We talked for a while longer, and when we hung up, I felt an unexpected sense of peace. Emma had burned her bridge with me, but Joe and the kids, they weren't my enemies. And if he was brave enough to stand up to her, I wouldn't hold a grudge against him. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Emma wasn't done causing trouble. A few weeks later, I received a text from Joe. "We're leaving this weekend." I called him immediately, and he explained that he and the kids were moving to his parents' place in another state, while Emma was visiting a friend, which I now suspected was code for another shopping spree. He was packing their essential belongings and taking the kids. He didn't want Emma to know where they were going until he had legal protection in place. "I just can't keep pretending everything is normal," he said quietly. "The kids see more than we think." "What about moving expenses and getting set up?" I asked, genuinely concerned about their well-being. There was a pause before he reluctantly said, "I was hoping you might help with that just until I get my first paycheck at the new job." "I hate asking after everything." "Say no more," I interrupted. "I've got you covered. Just tell me what you need." I ended up helping Joe and the kids relocate, but for the first time in years, it didn't feel like I was being used. It felt like I was finally supporting something positive. Emma, predictably, went ballistic when she returned to find them gone. She called me screaming that I'd turned Joe against her and destroyed her family. I let her rant for a minute before calmly saying, "Maybe if you spent less time shopping and more time being a mother and wife, this wouldn't have happened. But hey, good luck with that." Then I hung up. Joe is doing well now. He's found a decent job, the kids are adjusting to their new school, and he's finally starting to regain his confidence. As for Emma, I hear she's still blaming everyone but herself. My parents finally learned the whole story and have apologized profusely for taking Emma's side at Thanksgiving. But honestly, I'm just happy to be free of the obligation. Some family relationships are worth saving. Others just drain you until there's nothing left.